Welcome! Today we are going to be making our own sketchbooks from recycled materials that we can find in our houses. You know, books are just a way to share ideas through things like words and pictures, and a sketchbook for an artist is no different. This is a really great way to record what's going on in your life right now through pictures or words, or just to record your inspirations and ideas and things that maybe you want to come back to later and do a little bit more of. You know, books have changed a lot throughout human history. They started off as what we would say now are just clay tablets. They were called cuneiforms. They were used by people like societies in ancient Mesopotamia, very early forms of human communication. And they were only used by the royal family to decree things like laws and the lineage, that means the family history of the royal family. From there, the ancient Egyptians started making scrolls using papyrus. Papyrus is a kind of plant, and a scroll is like a long cylinder with the paper wrapped around it. Think about a toilet paper roll. It's like a scroll. Now, the scrolls that ancient Egyptians used, they would average to be about 14 to 25 feet long when they were all rolled out. They were really heavy, and the papyrus was really delicate. So those didn't last for very long, and you couldn't travel with them, so they didn't really spread information very quickly. Moving on from there, around the year 300, the Romans actually started using what's called codex. Codex are much more similar to the books that we know now, because codex had wood covers on the outside, and inside the papers were actually made out of animal skin. They were lightweight and durable and much easier to travel with, so they were able to spread information and ideas much more widely. This is what we would call mass communication. Mass communication is the sharing of ideas on a large scale, like social media. So for artists, a sketchbook is really vital. Any kind of artistic or creative person wants something that you can take with you somewhere to record any idea you have anywhere you go. Some people even use things like iPads as a digital sketchbook. That's really cool too. But what you want with a sketchbook is something with a nice durable cover, pages inside. They can be lined or blank. I know people who use different kinds. I kind of use different kinds depending on what I want to do. And something that's really lightweight and that you can travel with anywhere. To make our sketchbooks today, we need something that's cardboard. I'm going to use a tissue box because I have a lot of these to show you how I made my sketchbook. Anything that's kind of a thin cardboard like this that you would find on a cereal box, tissue box, cracker box, those work really well. As big as you can find is really great, but something thin enough that you can cut with scissors. Of course, you'll need scissors, a pencil or a pen, a ruler, some blank paper, and a rubber band. And I'll help you with the size of your rubber band once we get into our project. And I thought it would be fun too, before we get started on making our sketchbooks, if I showed you some of what I'm working on in my sketchbook this year. My goal is to fill up a sketchbook a year, and I don't always achieve that goal, but I'm definitely more on track this year than I have been in a while. So I'm going to just turn my camera down a little bit, and I'll share with you a little bit of what I use my sketchbook for to help you with some inspiration for yours. Here we go. Excuse me. So this is my sketchbook. I love this kind of sketchbook. It's got a nice hard cover. Put this down here. Sorry about the camera shaking so much, friends, but let's see if I can get you at a good angle. So these are just some ideas, some sketches. Sometimes I just do what I am enjoying. Sometimes I write lots of notes of the things that I need to do. I always try to date my sketchbooks as well. When I fill up a page, I like to write the date on it. Another example of that little sketch I'm still working out. Some sketches of some jewelry that I want to make. I make jewelry too. Some ideas I'm working on. It's kind of the more technical things that would go into sketching out and working on a piece of jewelry. It's just some fun color and meditation. Again, I do a lot of just what feels good in the moment when I work in my sketchbook. I did some observational drawing. Here I was at Wheeler Park, and I was laying on the grass and looking up at the Ferris wheel. And if you can tell, I'll flip this around so it's from a better perspective. It's not upside down. This is my view. These are my knees because I'm leaning back and I'm looking past my knees towards the Ferris wheel. So that's what that is. Just drawing what I see. It's a little bit more observational drawing. More the Ferris wheel. Just the scene from where I was sitting. I like to go places and just sit. Look around me and I just draw what I see, whatever that is. And I don't really worry about trying to make it look perfect because it's way more just an exercise for me. And it's a meditation. It's nice. It reduces my stress. It helps me get back in touch with my creative practice. I'm just drawing some leaves here. What else do I have to show you? Oh, I was going to show you this one too. Of course, as you can tell, my sketchbook goes back and forth. I kind of pick it up and turn it around and draw from different perspectives. It's a drawing that I did out at a river in Sulphur, actually. Looking forward to getting back outside this summer for sure. Let's see if there's anything else. A couple more things I have to show you, but you'll notice too in my sketchbook, I write. I write out feelings, or I'll journal. It's another observational drawing. I was at Lake Tonkawa here, sitting on the banks. This is the lake, and across the lake, there's a lot of the wind turbines out there, and the hill, little mountain behind it. So that is just some examples of what I use my sketchbook for, and then I could come back to this if I see an idea. I'll turn this back up. If I see an idea that I think was a good one and I want to work it a little bit more, then I can take what's in my sketchbook and put it on a canvas and make a bigger piece of art that way. Take my jewelry designs in here and make my jewelry with them. Sketchbooks are so vital. They're so important to our practice as artists, and they're just a really cool thing to have to get to go back and look at. Especially once you've been doing it for a few years, you can go back and really look at the progress that your artistic and creative practices have yielded. So it's really awesome. I'm so excited to make this with you today, and then we'll work with some ideas of some ways to fill it up. Okay, I'm gonna gather all my materials, change the angle of my camera, and we'll get started. See you in a bit. The first thing that you need to do is locate your box. Like I said, I'm going to show you how I made mine with a tissue box. Even if your tissue box is smaller than this, I will show you how to measure your paper and cut it so that it all fits. It's okay, whatever size your sketchbook ends up being is great. Keep it small enough that you can fit it in your backpack so you can take it places with you. So the first thing I want to do is check out my box and see how is my box put together. I want to find the seams. You guys see what I mean by a little seam right there? It's very bright. Let me see if I can. There, that's better. You see a seam. This is where the cardboard box has been glued shut. So I'm going to do my best, and I might need someone to help me with this. Might need another grown-up to come and help me. I'm going to do my best to open up all the seams on my box without tearing any of the cardboard. Think of this as opening a Christmas present, but the box is the present. So you want to be very careful. The other sides where my other seams are, see that? So I'm gonna gently. Try to get my finger underneath. If I can find an opening in the seam, I put my finger in there and then I just slide it, and that will just let loose where it's glued on. Open these two sides up. And now let's see if there's a seam anywhere else. I see another seam right here. See that? If there wasn't another seam, I could always cut this open, but I like to do as little cutting as possible and to use as much of the material as possible. So when I can open it up real big like this, I get a lot more material out of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is take my paper. Let's start with one piece of paper. And of course, to make it into a book, we would need our paper folded. Yeah, so that it'll open like a book. So what I want to do now is experiment with which way I can fold my paper so that it fits best kind of in the size of box that I have. Another thing to look for before you are kind of determining your paper size is there somewhere in this that's nice and big that has about the same space on either side of a big fold that's already there? I can think of this as the spine of my book, or where it folds. And then the front and the back cover, and that can be interchangeable depending on which way I flip it. But I have already tried this, and I know that this portion right here, if I can cut out this whole piece, this will give me the most surface area to put my pages in and will protect them the best. So actually, before I even measure my paper, why don't I just go ahead and cut out the part of my cardboard that I know I want to be my sketchbook. So I think what I'll do, I don't think I want these little flappy things on here. You might have a reason that you want to keep these. Maybe actually you keep them so that it can fold over the sketchbook. That might be kind of a cool idea. For our purposes, to keep it simple, I'm gonna cut mine off. I'm gonna use my extra long, extra magic art teacher scissors. You know, are only available to us art teachers, so if you want a pair of friends, you gotta become an art teacher. Kind of like being Harry Potter. I'm gonna cut off these little flappies that are in my way. Okay, continue cutting these off too, just so I get everything out of my way and I have a lot of surface area to work with. On this side, just be careful cutting cardboard. It can be a little bit harder. You might need help. You might need your grown-up to come help you. Now I want to remember, this is where the spine is. This is where my fold is. So I'm going to fold this over and can use my ruler and my pencil to kind of draw out the line that I want to cut this on. Oops, my pencil's not working. Helps me to cut a nice straight line if I draw it first. Going to cut right where that opening is, because we don't need that on here. Cut this off as best I can. Be careful always with scissors. Okay, so now I've got the cover of my sketchbook, and I'm gonna leave this little guy on here because it's kind of nice. It folds over. It's my sketchbook in place. If I want to cut that off, that's my choice. I can do that too, that's fine, but leave this part because this is part of the cover of your book. Awesome. Now we are going to see how to measure our paper so that it fits. So I'm going to open this back up and see. So I could fold it, if I put it like this and I fold it like this, that fits pretty well. That's a good option. I only have a little bit of paper coming off the side to trim. But just to try it out, I'm gonna also fold it the other way and see if I like one way over the other. And remember, when we do our folds, we always bring our corners together from either side. And I'm going to hold it at the top with one hand, using my other hand to drag down to the middle, and then crease one way, crease the other way. Crease just means I'm pressing on it so that the fold becomes indented in the paper. If I put this in here this way, You know, I kind of like that better for me personally because I like that it's not going all the way to the edge and I have a little bit of room to fold that over. But if I do that, then I still have some to trim off. Whichever way you do it, here's how you're going to measure and trim your paper. Obviously, I want to cut off the part that's sticking out. That's easy. That makes sense. I'm just going to do it on one piece of paper to start with, then I'll show you how to add your other papers in and measure them as well. So I'm just going to keep that in place, hold it down using my pencil. I'll draw a line right across where it's sticking out. I will take that out, and with it still folded, I'll just trim that right off on the line. All right. Now, here's how we do the rest of our papers. In mine, I got about 5 pieces of paper in mine, which gives me 10 pages, right? Because I'm folding them in half. So one by one, you're gonna take your paper, going to fold it the way that you want it to be folded inside your sketchbook. Do one, and do this with every one, just like you did with your first one. Set it in there, make sure it's lined up on the inside really well, going all the way to the bottom. Set it in. Draw your line. Trim it off. I like to do this one at a time because it's much easier to cut one piece of paper at a time than it is to try to cut all 5. That just won't really make sense. But for our purposes, I'm going to go ahead. I think you all understand how to do that part. Do at least 5 pieces of paper. If you can fit more, try that. The great thing about this book as well is that you'll be able to take it apart, to take papers out or add more papers in over time. And if your rubber band breaks in the process of doing that, that's okay. You can get another rubber band. Now, pretending that I had all of my papers cut and ready to go, we need to nest them now. Nest them like a bird's nest. When I nest something, I put my next one inside the middle of my last one. Okay? This is what it means to nest. I've got this one. This goes inside this one. The next paper would go inside that one, all with the folded edges together. Saying I have all of those done, I now nest them in here. Right, that's what it means to nest. I should be able to open up and have 1 paper, 2 paper, be able to turn it like that. But of course, like this, my papers just fall out. That's not a sketchbook. We need to create little notches in our paper and our cardboard so that our rubber band can sit in there securely and hold the papers in place. Here's how to know if you have the right size rubber band. Just take it and see if you can pull it to go the length of your sketchbook. If you can pull it all the way and there's still a lot of, it's very loose and it doesn't really snap back, then it's probably too long of a rubber band. If you can't pull it all the way without breaking it, it's too short of a rubber band. So it will be different for all of us depending on, you know, what the length is. So here's another point where you need your ruler. We need to cut little notches in our sketch, the top and bottom of our sketchbook cover and our paper. I don't need them to be really deep, just deep enough to hold everything in place. So I'm going to line up the 0 part on the inside of my ruler at the top, and I'm going to measure down only about 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of 1 inch. If you guys can see that, that is about, it's right in between the 1/2 inch and the 0 mark, about right there. Okay, I'm gonna flip my ruler over and do the same thing on the bottom. Started at the 0, go up to about 1/4 inch. You can do about 1/4 inch to 1/2 an inch. So I've got those marked. Now I know how deep to cut in the notch. So I just take my scissors and cut the notch just as deep as that mark is, right on the spine of my book. Now I need to do the same thing with my paper. But this, you might be able to do it with all of your papers nested in because it is pretty thin paper. If you have a hard time cutting them all at once, just take them apart and do them one at a time. I'm just gonna do the same thing. I put it top of my ruler, the 0 point, at the top of my paper, mark it at 1/4 inch. Flip this over and do the same on the other side. 1/4 inch. Make sure these are nested properly, and I cut a little notch here right in the middle. And a little notch here right in the middle. And now we nest again. Nest them so that the very middle paper, you're opened up to that one. You are on like this open spine to where you're on the same piece of paper. Does that make sense? It should be the very last one you nested. So all these papers on this side, all those papers on this side. With everything open, I'm going to take my rubber band. Just gonna slide it into that little notch. Ooh, sorry, that I've cut. You guys see that? And then all the way around. Whoop. And the notch on the other side. And now I have my sketchbook, my beautiful sketchbook. Something else fun that you can do, maybe I personally always buy Kleenex boxes based on how beautiful they are. If you're not as happy with your Kleenex box, the other thing that you could do, if you've done our paper marbling 2 ways project, you could get some of that paper that we saved, cut out your favorite parts and glue it on the front or the back. So the back of this, it's not that beautiful, so this would be a really, really good place for me to glue something over it, and I just may do that. A lot of sketchbooks also have decorations on the inside, which is really fun and beautiful. So you could also cut out your paper, glue it on the inside here as well, on either side. The other thing that you can do is add beads and a little tail to the spine of your book. And I'm going to grab those and I'll show you how to do that. And I'll be right back, friends. That was so fun. Let me show you a couple of things that you can add to your sketchbooks to make them even more unique and special. So if you've watched our project on how to make paper beads and you've strung some of your beads, you can get your string of beads. You have a few of my paper beads that I've made. Put them on a pretty piece of yarn, kind of a teal piece. I can take a hole punch. You might need a grown-up again to help you with this because it can be hard to do a hole punch in your cardboard, but it can be done. I'm going to take this and open it up, and then right towards the side of the spine, I'm going to go on this side of the spine. I'm going to punch a hole right at the top there, making sure that I give it enough space down that it won't just pull right through the top. You see that down there? It's about the same length down as my little notch, maybe just a little bit more. And I want to get it as close to the middle as I can without cutting into that notch right there. And then I can take my yarn with my beads on it, and I can just thread it through. Put that yarn through the hole. Might be a little tricky depending on how big the yarn is and how big the hole is. And I can just tie a little knot. Tie a double knot. So I did one knot, and then I do that again where I just take my string, the loose string, and I wrap it around the loop I made, through the loop, pull it through the loop and pull it tight. So do that twice. That's your double knot. And now you want to see how long you want this tail to be. This is going to be like a bookmarker for us. So that way you can put it, if there's somewhere you want to be able to go right back to in your sketchbook, you can lay this down and this will be your bookmarker. So I want it to be long enough so that the beads kind of make a little tail that hang out of my book a little bit. That will make it easy to find. So I just want to mark where that is. I'm going to hold this right there. And I'm going to tie more of a loopy knot. This will make sure that it's a thicker knot that my bead won't just roll right off of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop like this. And I'm going to tie the whole thing in a knot. So I'm treating it like it's one string, even though I have 2 strings, by making a loop. And I just tie my double knot that way. So there's 1, and do it again. There's 2. Oops. Move that knot down just a little. Let's see if I can get this one to meet. Okay, so now I have a nice double knot. I'm going to trim off my excess and make sure that my bead is not going to come off of that knot. Well, it might roll off a little bit, and if that's the case, just tie it again. A lot of times with beads and string, because we all are going to make our beads a little bit differently and our string might be different thicknesses, you just kind of have to play with it and get creative. Okay, so I tied that into a 3rd knot. It's a little bit thicker now. That's staying on much better. Be sure that you put a bead at the end that has a really nice thin hole so it won't come out. Just gonna trim off that little loop. You could keep it on there if you wanted to, but I'm just gonna trim off all my excess. And that knot might even kind of fit inside that bead just a little bit. But if it doesn't, that's okay, because now I have a fun little decoration for my sketchbook as well. I have a bookmark I can use, so I can always open my sketchbook right to where I want it to be. The other fun thing you can do, if you want your book to be able to close and stay closed, if you did the project with the same size tissue box that I did, I cut a little hole kind of right at the edge of that little flap that comes over. And I could add beads if I wanted to, but I don't think on this one I will, because I'm just going to add some yarn to give me something I can wrap around my book to close it. If I want to put maybe some other little pictures in there that I've drawn, I can do that and it will stay safe in there. So I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to thread it through. Might need a little help with this. Okay, and then I'm going to have kind of a nice long piece of yarn. I say the longer the better, because you want to also, you're going to double it. You see? So it's in the middle now. Have the tails meet. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to tie that same knot where I take my 2 strings together. They're next to each other, but I treat it like it's one string. I'm going to wrap it around my fingers and make a loop. Oh, sorry. And then I'm just going to wrap this tail around and through the loop, pulling it through, and then I want to try to get that knot as close to that hole as I can. It's okay if it's not right on there. Mine's not, and it's still going to work the same. Now this is what you can do. You can do it like this and just kind of tuck the tail like that, or unwind it here. Take your 2, wrap them around going different ways. You separate the 2 strings, wrap one going one way, one going the other. This is if you need it to be very top secret and secure, and you can tie it, just don't tie a double knot, because you want to make sure you can untie it to use it again. So I would tie a bow, like rabbit ears, like when you go to tie your shoelaces. So you're going to do your 1 knot, make your first rabbit ear, loop the tail around, pull through another bunny ear, pull it tight. There you go. And now I've got it all packaged up, safe and secure, ready to go on an adventure with me so that I can sketch what I see. I can record my ideas, my thoughts, my inspirations, and I have something to draw on and write on all the time. It's so important, artists, to listen to inspiration when it comes to you. That means when you have an idea or you see something that is exciting to you, that makes you feel something or think something, that is the time. That's the time to create. That's the time to write. That's the time to draw. That's the time to make whatever it is that you like to make. That's called inspiration, and your sketchbook is going to be a source of inspiration for you for years to come. Right now is an especially great time to start and keep a sketchbook or a journal. I want to challenge all of you, and I'm going to take this challenge on too. This is our creative challenge, okay? Can you draw or write in your sketchbook or journal every single day until the end of the school year? I'm going to take on that challenge. I hope that you will too, and let's check in with each other and see how we're doing with our challenge. Friends, I had so much fun with you today. I can't wait to see your sketchbooks, and I can't wait to hear what ideas that you've had and what you've recorded in your sketchbooks. I'll see you next time. Bye, friends.